What is the plan for the Dallas Mavericks with the Dumonts and the Adelsons? Are they moving to Vegas? Are they staying in Dallas? We're going to answer that question today with Ben Swanger from D Magazine on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm here because I have to be here.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
You are Locked On the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Isaac. I'm one of your co-hosts. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On NBA your second listen of the day. If you're a true Mavs fan, you already signed up for our newsletter. It's a free newsletter you get every day in your inbox, an email, and you're signed up for our Locked On Mavs Insider program to get all the latest news and Q&As and all the stuff texted to you. But today, I have a special guest. But first, got to do a quick ad read. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. Now let's get to our guest. It's the one and only Ben Swanger. Did I say it right? Is that good?
Yep, spot on, Isaac.
Let's go. All right. If y'all are unfamiliar with Ben Swanger is the managing editor for D CEO, the business title for D Magazine. And guys, coming out this week is honestly, and I'm not going to say this just to like make Ben's head bigger here. I think it's the best reporting on the story of the Dumonts, Mark Cuban, and everybody in the sale of the Dallas Mavericks. I think this is the best behind the scenes look at it. Some different nuggets and stuff about the story that a lot of Mavs fans, I think we don't know about it until I just read this yesterday, and I love it. This is coming out. This is dropping as a D Magazine. They're dropping a sports business issue with this big feature story that Ben has written of the behind the scenes of the Mavs sale. Ben, how excited are you for the story to come out?
And I was working on this story for a long time. In this issue, it's called The City of Champions. It's essentially a 100-page book about how North Texas became the sports business capital of the world. And so in this issue is a lot of different stories about all the major teams. And so I spent a long time diving into the Mavericks sale, why Mark Cuban sold the team to the Dumonts, why the Dumonts were the right buyers for this team, and the next 5, 10, 20 years, however long that they own the Mavericks. So excited for people to get this book in their hands, and it will come out Friday morning on our website, dmagazine.com. You can find it on our shop. So and then we'll roll out all the stories that are in the print edition. We'll roll out on our website in March.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk to you about the story, get some of the nuggets today, but also leave some of it for people to read online. Let me just ask a bigger zoom out question. Who all give us a scope of who you talked to for this story? And now that you're at the point you are now, knowing what you know now, what has surprised you the most about this story?
The story, I talked with Mark. We exchanged emails, talked with Cent Marshall, former CEO of the team, sat down with Patrick, of course, talked with him for about an hour about, all things basketball, why he bought the Mavericks. And then I talked with some of Mark's confidants, former lawyer of his, as well as Mavericks' former chief revenue officer, George Killebrew. Talked to those guys just to get a sense of Mark's, thinking. And then, yeah, several other folks are mentioned in the story as well. But it was a long reporting session that I went through, and it's an interesting story. But I think to answer your question, what surprised me most about Mark selling to Patrick and Miriam Adelson was the fact that he mentioned his family, that Mark really didn't want to put his kids in a position to have to decide if they wanted to run this team, right? We see it. We're kind of coming up close with the Cowboys. Jerry, he's stretching this thing out pretty far, but he's obviously going to pass the team off to his kids. And Mark, for some reason, he didn't want to put his kids in the position to do that. And so we'll talk about, why the Dumonts and why he chose the Dumonts later on, but it's pretty obvious to me why, Dumont and Adelson were the choice there.
So what do we know for people who just seen, Patrick Dumont, at the press conference, and it's like, all right, we know they're connected to Vegas. What do we know about the Adelsons and Dumont before this purchase of the Mavs?
This relationship that Mark and the Adelsons have, it dates back about a decade. It actually goes back to a cold email that Sheldon Adelson fired off to Mark Cuban one day. He was looking for an internship for his son Matan, who, by the way, owns a basketball team in Israel. So he's a basketball guy himself, but he was looking for an internship for Matan. And Mark said, "Sure, I'll hook him up with the job." And so Matan came down to Dallas and gave him the job. But yeah, that's where the relationship started, and then it kind of progressed. Mark had a speaking engagement in Vegas for the Adelson Family Foundation, and then in 2020, that's where the relationship with the family really took off, and that's when Dumont, Patrick, really got a chance to know Mark. Cuban and the Shark Tank team were looking for a place to film the season during the pandemic lockdowns. And at the time, Las Vegas Sands owned the Venetian in Vegas. And so Patrick opened up this resort for them to record the Shark Tank season. And so out of that really is where this deal started to form.
Mm. And, it's crazy that this relationship started, over an internship, kind of. Can you remind people who Sheldon is?
Sheldon Adelson, the late Sheldon Adelson, he's the founder of Las Vegas Sands. He passed away in 2021. He was married to Miriam, and Patrick married their daughter.
Okay. Just making sure we get all the names right and the moving parts in the story. Was this about? I thought one of the interesting parts of the story too was, it wasn't solely about owning the Mavericks, but there'd been interest of, it's kind of like I don't even know if you want to call it a dream, a goal of theirs. They wanted to get into sports ownership at some point.
Absolutely. And so if you look back, Cuban was the same way, right? He wanted to get into sports ownership. He struck out trying to get, in with the Pittsburgh Penguins, his hometown team. And the Adelson family, they've been looking to get a seat at the NBA's table for about a decade. And when I talked to Patrick, he mentioned, that the Mavericks were not, they were not going out trying to buy the Mavericks. It was always just they wanted a seat at the NBA table, right? And so when I was speaking with him, he noted the Los Angeles Clippers and the Phoenix Suns as two teams that they were considering, but opportunities that, came and went, and they didn't, that didn't come into fruition. And so the relationship that they had with Mark that started to build over the years, and after all the pitches at Shark Tank were done, Patrick sort of sat down with Mark and pitched a business idea of his own. And he said, "Look, I think Dallas is ripe for commercial development. I think Dallas has the bones to be a great destination for world travelers, right? I think, I've lived in Dallas my whole life. Dallas is a place where it's much better to live in than to visit." And so Patrick saw an opportunity there to bring tourism in. And obviously his main motivation was casinos and casino gambling. We all know it's not legal in Texas yet, but that's something that they're pouring a lot of money into, into lobbying for. So we'll see what comes, but yeah, that's sort of, this acquisition was motivated and is closely tied to their main business, which is casinos.
Yeah, you put a dollar amount in the story about how much they've put into this already to try to get it legalized, and y'all can read this story in the book on Friday to get that dollar amount, because I was like, whoa. which is
A lot of money.
probably not a lot for them, I guess, but
Right.
it's just it's pretty crazy. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback by Kyrie and this Dallas Mavericks, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay. Guys, FanDuel. You can like open up FanDuel at any time and see fun prop bets. I mean, how confident are you in the Mavs the rest of the season here? They're going to be underdogs a lot, especially with AD out. So if you're confident in how they're going to play, here you go. You can rack some money up on FanDuel. It feels like I never miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, the FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Okay, the pitch, and let's just do this now. What is the Dumont plan? Because I think if there's one big takeaway from this whole thing, especially from Mavs fans, one of the biggest worries over the past few weeks is like they're trying to move the team to Vegas. You know, it's the conspiracy theory, and it's like this is part of their plan. They never wanted to be in Dallas. You know, it's just I can tweet out the grass is green, and it's like, oh, Mavs going to Vegas. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I think reading this story that you've written with all this background, parts of the story, I think it's really hard to believe about them going to Vegas when you see the plan in which they have of buying this team. Can you just lay it out of like, what is the Dumont plan for the Mavs?
Plan is not to move the team to Vegas. Some background on their business, Las Vegas Sands. Yes, the company is called Las Vegas Sands. They don't have a single asset in Las Vegas. They don't own any casinos in Las Vegas. All their casinos are in Singapore or Macau. And it would make no sense for them to move the Mavericks to Vegas. For one, they exited Vegas. They sold all their assets a few years ago. They left. Their company's still Las Vegas Sands, but they don't have any play in Las Vegas anymore. And so the future of the Mavericks is right here in North Texas. The question is, are they going to stay in the Dallas city limits, or are they going to move to Irving? Are they going to move to Frisco? Are they going to move to a different city in North Texas? So Patrick's plan is not to move the team to Vegas. I understand the conspiracies around this after the trade. I'm going to leave the trade talk to you guys. I'm a business guy, so I'm gonna leave the sports talk to you guys. But it's just not going to happen. His plan is he bought the Mavericks because Dallas is a great place to conduct business, and he sees an opportunity in Texas to legalize sports betting, to legalize casino gambling, and make a fortune. I mean, if this comes to pass, the Mavericks could very well be in 5 to 10 years. You know, whenever casino gambling is legalized, they could very well be the most valuable NBA team in the league. It's a high possibility. And so Mark sold the team to the Dumonts and the Adelsons because he trusted their vision. He trusted their real estate expertise. This family, they're experts in building huge resorts and building huge casino gambling centers. And so when you look at this deal, it's all about that, right? Mark made his fortune in broadcasting. He made his fortune in media. And so when he bought the Mavericks, the NBA was in a place where they were making buckets of money off of these TV deals, off of, sponsorships, commercials. The economics in the NBA have shifted. And we've seen this. It's why we watch the Mavericks on Mavs TV now, on local broadcast channels. These Bally's, these Fox Sports Southwests, they don't exist anymore. They've collapsed. Like, it's all the money is dissolved, right? And we've seen the Stars kind of go out and create this Victory Plus. The Rangers are now on that platform, but there's no money now. The Mavericks started the season $50 million in the hole. They lost $50 million in media revenue. And so Mark saw that and was like, okay, I need to make a decision, because how is the team going to make up for these revenue losses? And he said, okay, it's real estate. We've seen the Cowboys make buckets of money out of the Star. We've seen the Rangers have a huge success with Texas Live, with the hotels that have gone up in Arlington. It's already a huge revenue generator for the team and the city. And so Mark said, look, I'm not a real estate guy. I need to find a family that I trust who can take this team and make up for this media revenue loss. And so the way to do it is real estate. It just so happens that the Adelsons are in casino real estate, and they're lobbying and pouring a ton of money into getting it legalized here in the state.
Yeah, and I thought that was, you're talking about how you look at kind of these different NBA franchises that have these, arenas, but it's in the midst of like these like districts, and there's other restaurants and stores and stuff. And it felt like, based off your reporting, that's like part of the plan too. It's not just a new arena. They want to create a hub of, hey, you come here even on non-game days, and there's entertainment and, all the stuff. I'm trying to think of like a place in Dallas, like or Frisco or a Grandscape or, something like that. That's like, but with this massive arena casino attached to it at the same time. And you mentioned they bought land in Irving. So that's an option, but it could also be in other places too.
Yeah. So Las Vegas Sands, the company, owns 260 acres in Irving, which is the old Texas Stadium site where the Cowboys Stadium used to be. And so to me, that makes the most logical sense of, they already have that land. That could be where the new arena is built, and a casino attached to the arena is built. But Patrick wouldn't commit to me when we were talking. He wouldn't say one way or the other if that's where he would build a stadium. He did commit to me and say that's where he could envision a casino. And so as I started piecing together and talking to folks close to him, it just, the more I thought about it, the more I analyzed this, it just makes sense to, if you're going to build a casino there, you're going to build a stadium there. And he wants to activate, wherever the stadium is, wherever the casino is, he wants it active 365 days out of the year. And honestly, I don't know if the city of Dallas has that kind of land to offer them. And he wants to keep the team in Dallas, the city limits, but it's just going to be really hard to come by. And he already owns land in Irving. So only time will tell if that's the site.
Where does Rick Welts come into play?
Yeah, Rick Welts was a very interesting hire. I talked to Patrick before he hired Rick. And so as I was looking at, the different stadiums across the league, the Warriors is the most successful stadium in the NBA right now. They really cracked the code on how to do sponsorships, how to activate that area all year round. And Rick was the man behind everything that is the Golden State Warriors arena. And so Patrick was able to lure him out of retirement and bring him over here. Rick Welts had about 7 years to build that stadium. Well, we're in 2025. The lease that the Mavericks have at the AAC is up in 2031. So he has a similar timeline to sort of put together this new stadium. And I think he's going to do it.
He lured him out of retirement. I'm sure there was a good price tag on that one.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned about the shifting economics in the NBA and how Cuban felt ill prepared for that next phase. And I thought it was really just interesting of the reasons for Mark to sell. And you mentioned, his family, and you had this direct line in there, and in which Cuban, told you, he said, I didn't want to put it on my kids in a position where they felt pressure to run a team. Sports fans are not always forgiving. Just take the Cowboys this past season, for example. But I think even like you look at the past few weeks too, and just what fandom looks like. And, he's, obviously he sold the team before these past few weeks, but it's like, yeah, the pressure as an owner, the pressure for his kids to someday own the franchise, that he's been kind of used to that, backlash or pressure when things don't go right, but not wanting that on his kids, I thought was an interesting part of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be. I think Dumont's really feeling that pressure on him now, right? We saw the video of him walking into the stadium, getting booed, and he's looking at Rick. He's looking at, other folks with him. He's like, are they booing me? Yes, Patrick, those fans are booing you. You are the face of this franchise now. You took Mark Cuban's seat. You have a lot of pressure, especially since you were the guy who signed off on that trade just before midnight to send Luka to Los Angeles. But yeah, it's Mark is in a stage of his life where he's kind of fading into the shadows, and he doesn't really want to be the face of a lot, right? He was the face of the Mavericks for 20 plus years. He was he's the face of Shark Tank. 2025 Shark Tank season will be his last. Obviously, you can get into the debate on if he's going to get into politics or not. But the fact of the matter is, when I ask Mark, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be? He doesn't want to be remembered as a basketball owner. He has a pharmaceutical company, Mark Cuban, Cost Plus Drugs, trying to bring folks, cheaper, more inexpensive, over-the-counter drugs online. He wants to be remembered as that guy. Honestly, he told me he wants to be remembered as the guy who effed up the healthcare industry. So that's the legacy he wants to leave.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
The irony, you're a Mavs fan too, so you've seen fans over the years, the irony of the complaints about, Cuban over the years. And now, we have, Patrick Dumont and the Adelsons, and, the Luka trade happens, and there's all, there's so many feelings and stuff right now, and anger. And it's like, man, for so many years we complained about Cuban. For somebody who's, interviewed, both of them, both the two owners here over the past, 25 years. How do you see this? Do you see it ironic too, of like, oh man, there's a lot of feelings over these past, few weeks, but yet I heard years of complaining about Cupid.
Yeah, it is. It's very ironic. I think fans are realizing now how good they had it with Mark. Mark sort of insulated this Mavericks team. He kind of built a bubble around this franchise to where, we look at other teams, they're bringing in superstars every 3 to 4 years. And the Mavericks are a team that was built on the back of Dirk for 20 years. And Mavs fans expected the next 20 years to be the same with Luka. And and that's dissolved. And so it's going to be different moving forward with Patrick. He's a business guy, and I understand when fans are like, look, he's detached from the team. He's this, that, and the other. The fact of the matter is, Mark did not sell the team to Patrick for Patrick to run basketball operations. That's Nico's job, and Patrick is here to make sure that the Mavericks are climbing the charts in terms of their valuation, because Mark still owns a portion of the team. He's trying to cash a check every month. and Patrick is trying to create value here, just like any CEO, just like any owner of any company would try to do with their business asset. They're trying to make as much money as possible.
All right, here's my last question for you. How do you think the Dumont tenure will be different than the past 25 years?
That's a tough one. I think over the next 20 to 25 years, however long the Adelson family owns the team, it's going to be an interesting ride. Patrick is going to do things his way. He wants to build on Mark's legacy, but he's going to do things in his own way, right? Over the 20 years that Mark owned the team, he was loud, he was boisterous. he was willing to go and talk about the referees and sort of, bring in $4 million worth of fines in the process. Patrick's not going to be that guy, right? Patrick's the guy in a suit and tie. He's going to be more detached from the team. It's going to be a different ride. And folks are probably, if they remember the Ross Perot Jr. days, it's not going to be like that. Ross did not know anything about basketball. Patrick, I think, knows a little bit more, right? He had a quote the other day that kind of made him look like he didn't know anything about basketball, talking about Shaq and Larry Bird's work ethic. But he knows a little bit more about basketball than people give him credit. So over the next 20 years, I think the Mavericks are going to have a new stadium. I do think Texas will legalize sports gambling. And both of those things will come because of the Dumonts. And I think, if Rick Welts is the guy building the next arena, I think Mavs fans are going to be pretty satisfied with going to a game. Now, they're going to wish that Luka was the guy putting up shots on the court in that stadium. But that's Nico Harrison's decision. And Patrick Dumont obviously signed off on it. But, it is what it is at this point.
Maybe the outside in the arena can be so cool that you forget who's wearing the jerseys. Ben, man, really appreciate it. Remind everybody again, we just covered, kind of zooming out, covering some of the topics of the story, but there's so many details within the story. It looks great in the issue, in the book. It, obviously the reporting is awesome. The story is great. Where can everybody get this on Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. So this issue called "The City of Champions: How North Texas Became the Sports Business Capital of the World," it comes out Friday morning on D Magazine's shop. So just go to dmagazine.com. You'll be able to find the shop button, and you'll be able to buy this issue. And so this book, it's a 100-page book about just that, how North Texas became the sports business capital of the world. It's got this Maverick story in it. It's got a great feature from Jamie Newberg on the ins and outs of how Chris Young built the first Rangers World Series winner. We've got a great feature from Mike Palucci about startup leagues in North Texas. This is the Major League Cricket, the rugby team, the Dallas Jackals, which crumbled due to bankruptcy. All the ins and outs of what it's like to build a startup league in town. And we've got all kinds of other great stories in there, thanks to the D Magazine Strong Side team and the D CEO editorial team. So I'm excited for folks to get it in their hands this week.
Awesome. Ben, really appreciate it today. Thanks for doing all the reporting on this story. I think there's a lot of feelings going around Mavs land right now. And I think you helped ease at least a little bit of the, am I going to lose my team? Am I going to lose my franchise to Vegas? And this story helps kind of see the plan for Dumont and what he envisions for the Mavericks in Dallas. So appreciate you, Ben. Enjoy your week.
Thanks, Isaac. It was a joy to be here.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.